welcome to episode 5 of Birds of Geek, Geek Syndicate, or whichever, I can't remember which way around we do it, but Birds of Geek, no matter where it's hosted. I am Amy, and with me as always, I have the delightful Barry.
Hello!
Very delightful. And the wonderful Anthony.
Hello.
That'll do. And today we've got a variety of comics, one that we've all read together, and then you two have both got one if we've got time. Is that right?
That's be right.
Awesome. So, one that we've all read this week, well, this episode, is Shades of Magic, The Steel Prince by V.E. Schwab. Is that how you pronounce it?
I'm going to say yes because I don't know any different. By Victoria Schwab.
Yeah, I'm with Ant on this one.
Okay. And let me make sure I get everyone down. So that is the author. Artist is Andrea Olimpieri. Colourist Enrica Eren Anglioni. I can't pronounce any of these names.
Do you want me to name?
Yes.
Right. So the writer is Victoria Schwab. The artist is Andrea Olimpieri. Colorist is Enrica Eren Anglioni. I can't do names now. Angiolini. The color assists are by Viviana Spine. The flats in chapter 4 are Cassandra Peirano, and the letters are by Rob Steen.
I could have done that one.
Yeah.
And it's published by Titan Comics.
So, Shades of Magic, Volume 1, The Steel Prince. Written by the #1 New York Times best-selling author V.E. Schwab, and torn from the universe of the Shades of Magic sequence, this all-original comic book prequel to A Darker Shade of Magic is perfect for fans of bloody swashbuckling adventure and gritty fantasy. Delve into the thrilling, epic tale of the young and arrogant Prince Maxim Maresh, long before he became the King of Red London and adoptive father to Kel, the leader of A Darker Shade of Magic. The youthful Maresh is sent to a violent and unmanageable port city on the blood coast of Varos, on strict orders from his father, King Nokil Moresh, to cut his military teeth in this lawless landscape. There he encounters an unruly band of soldiers, a lawless landscape, and the intoxicatingly deadly presence of the newly returned pirate queen, Orissa. Collect Shades of Magic, The Steel Prince, numbers 1 to 4.
I'll start off. I didn't realise that about this series of books because anyone who knows me will know that I struggle to read novels, so unless they're in an audible form, I don't tend to much. My dyslexia is kind of the key reason behind that, so I wasn't aware of this series of books. Were either of you aware of them?
No, I have to admit, I wasn't aware of them at all, and I didn't realise that, because to begin with I thought, well, was this an adaptation of one of the books, but it's not. It's actually a kind of original piece, isn't it? It's almost like a sort of prequel to the novel. So no, I had no idea.
I had a little smidge of an idea, but literally only because I kind of read the extra bits that are in the book and the interview and some other bits sort of around it. So I know this is basically the Steel Prince, the eponymous. How do you say eponymous? I don't know how you say it. Steel Prince. Eponymous. Thank you, Mr. Writer.
You're so welcome.
Steel Prince of this comic book is essentially, he's kind of one of the antagonists, really, I believe, of like the main series of books in the Shades of Magic. So I just knew that from, as I say, from the adverts and the interview with Victoria that's included in this collection here as well. So other than that, I wasn't aware. And
as these are prequels, either of you two interested in the books?
If the point of the comic is to get people to read books, it's definitely got me interested in checking the books out. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I absolutely love the comic. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a twofold job. One is obviously to create an entertaining comic, entertaining story, but the other one is to draw you into the world in such a way that you want to find out more. And obviously the only way to really do that is to dive into the novels. And I'm a big novel reader. It's been a while since I've read any fantasy, to be honest. And I quite like some of the ideas that were in the comic, and some of the sort of world building that's been set up. I quite like the idea of it enough to make me want to check it out in the novel, because I feel they can really get into it a bit more.
Cool. Let's get on to the comic then. So, do you want to start with what you thought then, Barry?
I see what you did there.
Ha
So the story behind it is basically, I'm trying to remember it now, but there's kind of there's like 4 worlds, aren't there? Like are they parallel worlds?
Yeah, they're kind of like worlds that have been sort of sealed off from each other by magic. From what I gather, because there's a little kind of prequel couple of pages, isn't there, in the comic, which sets up some of the background. So it's basically there were 4 worlds instead of 1, set side by side like sheets of paper. I didn't make that up. I'm reading. And yeah, there was some kind of I think there was magic in them which sort of like faded out. So some of them went to presumably like our world or whatever, and the last one basically had the strongest, and it kind of locked the other worlds off or something. So they're kind of like the worlds are separate but still there.
Yeah,
is the impression I got from the snippet at the beginning. And this is like the Red London. So the Red London is like the big magic-y one. This is like the main setting of this comic series. And I think there's black, white, and I'm not sure what the other one is.
Hence the shades.
Yeah. And to get the sort of talk the positives, the first thing I have to say about this comic is from the opening page, the art is stunning.
Yeah.
The art and the colouring and the lettering it's bright, it's bold, it's evocative. Oh, that's a good word. I'll use that again. It's evocative. And it kind of draws you in straight away. What I did find as I kind of went on with the comic is I did find some of the action beats a little bit hard to follow. So some of the sort of big sort of set pieces where there's a lot of magic being used, sometimes I got a bit lost in who was doing what to who. But some of the way the artist interpreted the way different types of magic was being used, I thought was really cleverly done, because I think there's a type of magic. I don't know if it's called bone magic or, but she basically manipulates, and this is what the Pirate Queen does, and she kind of manipulates people's bones, for want of a better word.
Yeah.
But the way that the artist kind of shows it is almost like an X-ray.
Yeah.
And I think I think that was done really well.
I really liked that as well, the way that the bone magic was portrayed.
Yeah.
It made it very, very clear. And the magic that Steel Prince does, that involves metal.
Yes.
And it wasn't always clear whether it was magic in places or, I don't know, just fire, because it was red.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's also like, was he just melting it, or was he
is he
affecting the metal directly?
Yeah, or is he drawing it towards him? It wasn't always clear, whereas the bone magic, because they generally put the characters much darker and blander and just have the bones in the purple. And it's really the only time you see the purple is when bone magic's involved. So you know instantly then, oh, that's bone magic. And that was tied through. Whereas I'm flicking through the pages now, and there's a big fight sequence, and someone's obviously using fire, but because it's coloured similar to the metal magic, as I'm calling it, it's kind of like, well, is that fire or is that metal magic? Because it could be either.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, for me, the thing that I love most about the art, and it's an odd thing really, is I really love the design of the world.
Yes.
Because it's kind of got that kind of like Renaissance era sort of fantasy about it. A little bit gothic, but also a little bit, almost like prequel Naboo, where there's clearly very much a kind of, what's the word, kind of high class kind of style to everything. But then the port city is clearly, this more gothic kind of, it's almost like the difference between Metropolis and Gotham in some ways, going from like the London scene at the beginning to the port town, where the Steel Prince kind of like meets his companions and becomes, starts to become the man who eventually he'll presumably turn into. But there's something quite unique about the style. So it's like the crown that the king wears, for example. It's kind of like, made up of diamonds, and in an offset sort of pattern, and I don't know, it just really struck me straight away of, oh, okay, this is a very unique world. And I think going back to what you were asking earlier, Amy, I think it's that kind of the design ethic that makes me really want to check out a little bit more about the world, and maybe check out some of the novels, to see how that transitions into the prose kind of thing, and how much of it is informed by and how much it informs that.
To me, it's almost like if you set the Three Musketeers in a fantasy world and you gave them magic.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's got that kind of. I know they use the term swashbuckling anyway, but it certainly has that kind of Three Musketeers. I'm trying to think of some of the old, not the Seahawk, which is like a film with Errol Flynn. That kind of era, not your modern swashbuckler. I'm talking about going way back. Douglas Fairbanks Jr., Mask of Zorro, Prisoner of Zenda. Prisoner of Zenda. That there's one of the sort of covers. Has got the prince kind of dressed in a kind of almost like a white suit, like a red sort of cape, and that made me. And I couldn't place what it made me think of. And it made me think of the Prisoner of Zenda. That's what the whole layout makes me think of.
Mm.
And yeah, I certainly like the world building in this. And by no means am I saying that this is a bad comic in terms of art or anything like that, or even in terms of the story. I thought the story was pretty cool. I just think that going forward, if they do more of these, they just need to give a bit more thought in terms of how they structure out
the fight
sequences, because I think in some ways they were being so inventive that sometimes you lost the flow of the actual fight.
Yeah, I think there's very much a feel of almost finding your feet a little bit with how you're incorporating the magic. And sometimes, magic's a funny thing because it can be, well, it sounds a stupid thing to say, but magic's a funny thing because it can either be really easy to do when it's just literally like, wizards throwing lightning bolts at each other.
Mm-hmm.
But then you consider, for example, if you were adapting, say, the Gandalf Saruman fight in the Fellowship of the Ring, the film, where it's literally they're just almost like throwing each other around and there isn't much in the way of effects, and that's quite hard to visualize. And this, from what I've got from this comic, it seems like the magic of this world, of these London, certainly of Red London, it's more subtle. And I quite like the fact that they tried to keep it subtle. But yeah, in places, I think it did miss a little bit. Like Amy was saying, sometimes the colours weren't clear as to what was going on because is it a fire magic? Is it the metal magic? And that kind of thing. But as you say, the bone magic was just visualised superbly.
Yeah. I think there's a sequence where is it Ezra, and she's like one of the royal guards. And she's got like a sort of a little team with her, and that's why I was getting that kind of almost Three Musketeers, and like the Maxim guy was almost like your D'Artagnan type character.
Yeah, sort of coming into it really brash and arrogant and cocky initially.
Yeah. But they have like a little training session, the two of them, and you get to see their sort of magic and stuff. That's done really well because there's a little bit where I think she's kind of got her sword on him. And he says something like, "Oh, well, I'll take your sword." And because it's metal, it kind of drips into his hand almost, and it becomes a sword again. And I thought that's really cool. And that was like the first time I really started to get a sense of how he uses his magic.
Yeah.
I almost feel like it's the kind of comic where I would benefit reading it a second time around in terms of the action sequences, which is a blessing and a curse because in one respect, you want to read a comic a second time because you've enjoyed it, but you don't want to read it a second time to understand things more, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But, sorry, go on then.
Sorry, I was just going to say, for me, I mean, I quite enjoyed it. I enjoyed the general plot. I'm willing to, it's in no way turned me off. I think, I had similar-ish issues with some of the pacing of the action sequences. But it was more the bigger sequences where you had more people involved. I think, say, that little training montage and the sort of almost like the duel on the ship. They were done really well. But when you've got more people in and you're trying to present this magic in a unique way as well, I think it was almost not too much, but it it muddied the waters a little bit. But I think as the series goes on, because this is only issues 1 to 4 after all, I think it would. I think the team would really start to get that and really bring that in. For me, I found it a little bit condensed. I thought the 4 issues, I would quite like to have seen this story play out over 6 issues.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Because I think then you would have had a bit more time to get those action sequences a bit, and especially because it is, it's a swashbuckling tale. It says that in the blurb. So you want the action sequences to hit the nail, and occasionally they didn't. But yeah, I mean, it's odd because other than those sort of little pacing issues, I really love the artwork. I love the colouring in it. The fact that it's quite muted. There's sort of you've got the colour tones for different magics. We said it was a bit confusing where you've got the colour between the metal magic and the fire magic were very similar. I think one was a more vibrant yellow and the other was kind of an orangey, but there's not much to distinguish them. So it's that kind of muddled a bit. I thought the dialogue was cool. I quite like the characters. To be fair, even the Steel Prince, who I don't usually like arrogant characters because they set my teeth on edge, because especially at the moment I've got so little self-esteem that to see someone at the opposite end of the spectrum usually winds me right up, sort of thing. But yeah, no, I quite liked him, and I quite liked the fact that even though he was this brash, arrogant young upstart, effectively, who was sent off to learn and didn't think he needed to, he very quickly over the course of these 4 issues does kind of suddenly realise by the end that actually I do have a lot to learn and I'm willing to try and learn. Yeah. And you can guarantee he's going to have some missteps and some backsteps along the way. But yeah, for me, I quite liked his journey. I just would have liked to have seen it maybe over a couple more issues.
Yeah, I'd agree with that as well. Because he could have been given a bit more time to sort of, because in one respect he was quite arrogant to start with, but I found that I liked him far quicker than I thought I would. And I don't know if that, like you said, I don't know if that's because his journey is condensed into 4 issues, and if it was stretched out a little bit more, he could be a little more less likable. I don't know.
I think part of it though is that even though he's arrogant, he seems to be arrogant, not in a good way, but it's kind of like, it's like he wants to make a change and he wants to help people.
Yes.
He's arrogant, but he wants to do right by the town and that sort of thing. He's not arrogant going, I want to come in and do everything. He's arrogant just because he's like, well, it should be done this way.
Yeah. He's very much in that D'Artagnan mode, I suppose. Yes, I suppose that's where his arrogance is coming from. Because when you watch any, I've never read the Three Musketeers books, I put my hand up, but when you watch any kind of interpretation of the Three Musketeers, that opening scenes with D'Artagnan where he first meets the Musketeers, he is arrogant as all. Well, he basically fights all 3 of them, or wants to fight all 3 of them.
Yeah.
And he's just got this level of arrogance that runs through their story. But they kind of take it and channel it, and it's just, I mean, in those books, it's a desire to kind of avenge the death of his father, whereas in this comic, it's a desire to kind of prove to his father, that he's a better man than he thinks he is, and that. Because I think the main reason that he's doing it because he believes that they should open up the borders, doesn't he, to the other world?
Yes, thankfully, yeah.
So overall, I really enjoyed it. I would be interested in reading more. I think probably if I was going to read more, I would wait for the next trade to come out.
Yeah, definitely.
And then what I would probably do, to be honest, is I would probably read it all again.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think I certainly thought the flaws that I thought it had they were definitely not enough to turn me off. I read it through in one sitting, which showed it, despite the fact that it had some pacing issues, shows that actually it had a pace because I could just read through and enjoy it in that sort of one sort of couple of hours sitting. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought the style and the design of it really drew me in. The characters were quite good, had good potential to keep, to develop. and I would like to see them develop. So yeah, I'm definitely interested in reading a bit more.
Cool.
I definitely am interested in reading more. Like you both, I probably will wait for the next volume. I have looked at the books, but they don't seem to be available on any audio downloads. So I'm probably not going to get into the books just because it takes me 3 years to read one novel normally compared to if I can just listen to it in the car.
Yeah.
So, which is a shame because I would like to see more of the world. So I kind of keep up with it and just kind of keep an eye out on that. So yeah, I am interested in it. I like is it Isra? Kind of the female?
Yes.
Yeah. I like Isra.
I think she plays quite a big role in the novels as well, from what I was reading.
Yeah, and to me, Maxim, he was just kind of like, I wouldn't say that he drove the story forward, really. It felt very much like every other character driving the story forward, and he was just kind of present and kind of finding his feet, so it didn't really feel like he was
his story.
Yeah. So I kind of feel like it needed to be 6 issues to pull out and actually make it his story, seeing as it's called The Steel Prince.
But you say that, but that's how a lot of modern fiction is. You look at Harry Potter, he doesn't drive the story.
Yeah.
You look at Katniss in the Hunger Games, she doesn't really drive the story. They're just the means to the end in those stories.
Yeah.
So I think, although it's about him, it's not about him.
Yeah, but I would have liked it to have been 6 issues so that, he could do some more other than get captured. Because, that's a rubbish storyline for any character.
Didn't wind up in the fridge, though, so...
Yeah, well, hey, progress. But yeah, so I would like to read more of it. Barry?
Yes?
Never mind. Sorry, you've already said with you. I'm too busy flicking. I'll be honest. I'm too busy flicking through the art again. I'm just getting caught up in the art.
Yeah, I'd forgotten how lovely the art was actually on this.
Yeah.
But I think that's us covered on that, really, isn't it?
I think it is. So, who wants to go next?
Well, we've probably got time to squeeze in one, I think, because we've got about 10 minutes or so. So, B, do you want to...
fight to the death.
Well, I was just going to say, B, do you want to do your own, because you were quite eager to talk about something?
Yeah, it may only take me 5 minutes, so we'll see how we go. I'll read the blurb first before I say what it is, but you should be able to guess as I read the blurb. He says, about to read the blurb with a deep breath. After a chance meeting with billionaire Bruce Wayne, Elmer Fudd's obsession quickly escalates into stalking Batman through the dark alleys and high-class social settings of Gotham City. Welcome to Bat Season, and the bonus Looney Tunes backup story features DC characters written by Tom King and artwork by Brian Vaughns even. So this is one of the, DC were doing all these Looney Tunes specials.
Yeah.
So this one is the Batman and Elmer Fudd special, which several people had told, including Dave, had told me that I should read because I'd really enjoy it. Now, I tend to be a little bit, I don't really like kind of, I call them gimmick comics, just to sort of, just to get people reading. It's going to, it's just going to shift copies, isn't it? Because look, it's Looney Tunes and whatever. So I think it was on a sale on Comixology, so I was like, oh, go on then, I'll give it a go. And I quite like the look of the cover, so I thought I'll give it a try. I have to say, this comic was wicked. Have either of you read it?
No.
It is brilliant. Because what they do is, this comic contains, I don't want to say too much, I don't want to spoil it. They've managed to contain pretty much all the Looney Tune characters, but they're all human. And they do them in such a way that if you know Looney Tunes, just by their dialogue, you know who's who. Once they deliver the dialogue, you then take a close look at the artwork, and you can see they've done, probably in some cases, not so subtle things to let you know who they are. because I don't know how well you even know the Looney Tunes. I mean, I grew up with them. You know, that was my thing as a kid and whatever. And I was able to spot them all. And I thought it was brilliant. However, what they've done with Elmer Fudd is they've kind of made it almost feels a little bit like a cross between like the Punisher and a Hitman.
That works.
So he's quite a kind of dark, gritty character, and the story itself is quite a dark, noirish sort of tale, even though it's funny. And it starts out with him about to kill Bugs Bunny, and when you see who Bugs Bunny is, you're kind of like, oh right, okay, it's going to be this sort of a comic. And the way he kind of ends up involved with Batman is really well done. And they managed to make a fight between Batman and Elmer Fudd actually be quite realistic and again quite gritty. It's brilliant. Brilliant. I'm now campaigning for Elmer Fudd to get his own spin-off series. I buy. Forget Batman. Just give Elmer Fudd a series like this. Elmer Fudd, give him a series.
I'm just looking at the
Fudd.
At the 3 pages, or Comixology gives you the
Yeah.
3 pages, and yeah, I mean it's properly noir, isn't it?
Yeah.
And yeah, just like the opening shot, it is like the usual kind of, guy reaching for a cigarette kind of thing, but it's a carrot.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant. And even the backups, but the backup story they have is full on Looney Tunes. So it's the complete other way. It's actually like a Looney Tunes cartoon that they've just done a comic to. And again, it's Batman and Bugs Bunny, but this time Bugs Bunny is actually Bugs Bunny. It's really funny, but they could have put that on as a cartoon. That's the sort of cartoon I would have watched as a kid with Bugs Bunny, except it's Batman. Yeah. So it's a prime example of people knowing their material and their characters so well that they're able to kind of turn them on their head. It's one of the best sort of things of this type that I've ever read.
So it's a worthy crossover then, not?
Yes.
It didn't feel too gimmicky because of the way they've done it.
No. Because I think the thing with these sorts of with crossovers is where you lose me is where you take 2 characters and they're not true to those characters in their own right.
Yeah.
Because they could have easily have made Batman kind of quite slapstick and the whole thing quite slapstick, and or there's some sort of, this is a different universe and they've drawn in the Looney Tunes characters and Bugs Bunny's Bugs Bunny. It's like, no, they've taken the essence of those Looney Tunes characters and put them in Gotham City, but they've put them in Gotham City as real people.
Yeah.
So you don't lose what makes Batman Batman.
Yeah, it's very authentic, I guess,
Yeah.
to the main source.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, and I suppose you make the argument that actually they have completely changed Elmer Fudd and everyone else. But even though Bugs Bunny is kind of this sort of weaselly bloke in it, when you actually read the comic, if you know Bugs Bunny, he's still basically Bugs Bunny, i.e. being a dick to everyone.
Yeah.
It's funny how as a kid you don't really think about that so much.
Bugs Bunny's a complete dick.
He's a dick.
But when I was like 6, I never really thought about that.
Steph, my sister, had these Bugs and Daffy toys where they would like talk to each other, like they'd get set on set loops and they'd respond to each other. And it was through those I realised how much of an a-hole Bugs Bunny was.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you watch him now, he's not good.
The only one where Bugs Bunny, in my opinion, is at his best is I can't remember the name of it. It's the very famous one with the opera, and he's in the thingy where he's basically in drag.
He's always in drag. He's Bugs Bunny.
It's the opera one.
Yeah, I vaguely remember that.
It's my favourite one, and I can't remember its name. But yeah, it's the opera one. I'm just flicking through the other DC Looney Tunes preview pages. So we've got Lobo and Roadrunner, Jonah Hex and Yosemite Sam, Wonder Woman Tasmanian Devil, Martian Manhunter and Marvin the Martian, Legion of Superheroes and Bugs Bunny.
Wasn't there was a Catwoman Tweety Pie one as well, wasn't there?
I thought there was, but it's not in this preview. I'm sure I saw a Catwoman Tweety Pie.
Yeah, I remember seeing the cover for it. Because that's the only one I'd seen before. I didn't realise there was like more of them coming out. I'd just seen that cover at one point. But yeah, so this one in particular worth picking up. B, is what you say?
Yes, yeah, definitely. I don't know if the sale's still going on Comixology, but even if the sale wasn't going on, I would heartily recommend people pick it up because it is a really good read, and the artwork is really good, really atmospheric as well, which really helps to sell it. You just have to look at the cover. The cover gives you a kind of taster of what you're going to get inside, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah, it's as I say, I mean, it's properly. The cover reminds me of sort of like the Long Halloween kind of, the Tim Sale kind of style of Batman. Yeah. I mean, the interiors are a bit less that. They're a bit less stylized, I guess. But yeah, it's very noir. It's very serious looking. And I think that probably helps sell it as well. The fact that, you've got these crazy characters that are in this almost hyper reality of noir. That probably really helps it. Yeah, there's a Catwoman Tweety and Sylvester.
Okay. So so that's mine.
Cool. So that seems like a reasonable place to draw to a close.
Okie dokie.
Okie dokes. So thank you everyone for joining us. As usual, if you've got any comments, suggestions or anything, then you can tweet at Geek Syndicate, you can email, you can go on our website, you can contact us in many of the platforms. And good night, or goodbye, depending on what time you're listening.
Bye all. Happy reading.
Cheerio, read comics.